Hello, I'm Jamila Dalla Egbert III, Mistress of the Steam Tunnels from Dungeons and Doritos. I'm coming to you from the floor of Megacon. Ta-da! Nerdy Show did a panel at Megacon called Potions, Proton Packs, and Pokéballs, Adventures in Tabletop Role-Playing Podcasts. And we're going to show you a highlights reel of that panel. And when you're done with that, you'll come back and see me again. And I'm beautiful, so you should totally watch the whole thing. Here we go!
Welcome to Nerdy Show's Megacon panel, Potions, Proton Packs, and Pokeballs. Whee! Hi, I'm Cap.
Hi, I'm Hex.
I'm Roll.
I'm Kay.
I'm Wall.
I'm Doug. And together we are a gaggle of contributors to Nerdy Show's tabletop role-playing content. Nerdy Show is a podcast network, and among all of our podcasts with like interviews and music and all kinds of stuff, we have become really well known for doing role-playing podcasts.
For some reason.
That started, well, there's a very good reason. There's several very good reasons, Hex, and I won't have you naysaying.
It was my idea. I still think it was a dumb one.
Back in 2009, we started doing a show on the radio, and that radio show turned into a podcast. And ever since we were on the radio, we thought, wouldn't it be funny if we played a game of Dungeons and Dragons while we're on the air?
It could be like a radio play.
Yeah.
An old school radio play.
We'll just do it. It'll be improv. It could go horribly wrong.
It probably will, but let's do it anyway.
Yeah. So we did. And we put it out, and it was rough. I mean, it was real rough. We never recorded anything like it before. We were still amateurs at the time, and people loved it. The numbers were through the roof. We're like, oh my god.
It was like episode 4 or 5 for us, and it was highest numbers for at least a year.
It was completely ridiculous. We have to do more of this, and both Hex and I were really we were really uncertain about was it good? I didn't think it was that good.
Like I had a lot of experience with role playing before that, but Cap and one of our other hosts had no experience.
Yeah, I was completely ignorant to tabletop role playing until we did this. So back in 2009. There wasn't much of a precedent for role-playing podcasts. It was still like undiscovered country, basically. And we were just kind of feeling it out. Now, how many of you here actually listen to role-playing podcasts on the regular? Couple hands. Okay.
Wow.
Well, okay. No, good amount,
That's
actually.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, first of all, when we started, we were actually playing Dungeons and Dragons. We were playing 4th edition D&D. And as those of you who play 4th edition D&D might know, it's a very visually oriented game. The grid system and the figurines, they do take a certain amount of dominance. It's not that the role-playing isn't there, but you have to try really hard to pull it out. And there we were talking in characters and doing the best we could. Clearly that was good enough for everybody, but we wanted better. We knew if we were going to keep doing this, it needed to be like a radio play. This man is Rule Knudsen. He created the Sagas role-playing system, which you can get on DriveThruRPG, and it changed everything for D&D. Kay here has been featured on 2 of our RPG one-shots. First it was Paranoia XP, and then it was Call of Cthulhu. And Doug and Mike here are representing Ghostbusters Resurrection.
Yeah.
Their show that we brought in from the outside. They were so good. We did a Ghostbusters show on Nerdy Show. We interviewed Dan Aykroyd, we interviewed Eric Burnham, the guy who's writing the Ghostbusters comic. It was a great episode. So after that show, this guy posted on our forums hey, we do this Ghostbusters role playing podcast, and we've been joking about doing one of those ourselves using the original 1980s system for a long time. And then I listened to it, and it was amazing.
Thank you.
It's set in Orlando, and the whole team deals with actual regional problems.
The idea was the system was an old system left over from the late 80s, and it has since been out of print, and we found PDFs online, and this is great, but one of the equipment cards you have to have is a car phone. And a walkie-talkie and all these things. And I'm like, we can't play this game unless we have it take place in the 80s, and that would be fun, but I for whatever reason, I wanted them to play as themselves to make it feel realistic. I didn't have a lot of confidence in my DMing skill at the time. So I was like, you can play yourselves, and we'll play here, and, whatever.
It made it way easier not having to pretend to be somebody else.
Yeah. And so then I photoshopped up a couple new equipment cards, allowed them to use cell phones, all modern technology. We went to every bus that they go to is a real location. In fact, now that season one's been done for a little while, but now that season 2 is well underway, I'm actually going to be releasing a Google map with all the plot points of where they actually go. So if someone was so inclined and they were in Orlando, you could be like, that's where they did that thing. That didn't really happen, but I heard it happen, so it felt real.
Well, they have a firehouse staked out in Winter Park.
Yeah, we have. Yeah. There's a couple of firehouse potentials that we would one day like to buy if we had the money. But there's a set location of where the firehouse is. We go to Disney. We bust a ghost on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. I don't have anything against Jack Sparrow, I promise. We go to, where else did we go?
We went to Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Ripley's Believe It or Not.
But just down the street.
Yeah, a lot of touristy locations, but also like a lot of locations that a lot of locals might know.
Like Fort Christmas.
Fort Christmas. It's just been a lot of fun hearing these guys' reaction every time I say, I'll be like, okay, you guys got a call coming in and you're going out to blank. And they're like, ugh. Because the real life place sucks. So I don't know, it added an element.
We're going to UCF?
Yeah. It added an element of realism that your guys' reactions were very honest, and that to me made it sound good when it was being cut together. So like when something would happen, you're giving an honest reaction that was funny, but I don't know, I keep saying real, but it's not real. But it felt very real, and that's what made it entertaining for me.
But you guys tell stories like you were actually there.
Isn't that the ultimate dream? Playing an RPG game and like, let me tell you about the time that we were doing this. Yeah. And then you can convince somebody that you did it. I remember Poole, in fact, who's one of the Ghostbusters. We were halfway through season 1, and he was having dinner with his parents, and he told me that he was hanging out, and they were just like, so how's work going? And he honestly, because he just came from a game, he was like, it's going really good. Business is picking up, and he's talking in very vague terms. And I'm like, really? That's so great. He goes, oh my gosh, I'm talking about Ghostbusters. And he had to stop himself.
He's halfway through this conversation like, yeah, no, it's great. We went out to,
Magic Kingdom or whatever.
And we
talked to the news. The news was finally getting some good press.
And it's like halfway this conversation, his parents and his girlfriend realize, you're talking about Ghostbusters, aren't you? And he goes, yeah, I am, actually.
Done. But you put your screenwriting background to work on this.
Right. Like, I went to school for screenwriting, and so on top of the millions of dollars and fame it's already given me, I decided I wanted to be a good DM, so the Ghostbusters game stuck out because obviously I'm a fan of the movie and I'm a fan of that whole universe, but the role-playing system was so simple, and I suck at math. It was just D6s, no complicated stuff. The character creation is very easy. So I recorded our first game with the intention of listening to it and hearing my own voice and trying to see if I'm good at telling stories. Am I good at making it believable for the people playing? And was there good rapport? Am I fast enough? Am I too slow? And while I had it in Audacity I was listening to, I knew that people had ripped the sound effects from the Ghostbusters video game. So I pulled up like a YouTube video that had the sound effects in it. And at a certain point, I think it might have been Wall here actually. During their first bust, they're just out, and there's a taxi cab that's driving itself in downtown Orlando, and they're like, "That's kind of creepy." And then Wall goes, "Yeah." I turn on my Proton pack, and then I hit play, and I hear the kick on, and they're not reacting to the cool sound happening because they're just playing the scene. But I'm now hearing the sound effect, and I'm like, I have to do the entire thing. And I added the ghosts, I added in the actual proton beams. They're not reacting to the sound effects, so it made it seem more realistic that they're just doing what they're doing. And then I added in the soundtrack from the film, and before you knew it, I had discovered something that no one else had heard, and I put it on a Tumblr and just shared it with these guys. And that's when someone from Nerdy Show found it, put it on their forums, and that's when Cap called me, and I'm like, it's funny? Like, other people think this is funny? Other people? Like, I thought it was just something for them to listen to and laugh at, but no, Cap's been very kind about it. When I'm editing our show, to cut it down for time, because we don't want to do a 3-hour one either, it starts to cut into, like, the rolls themselves, where it's like someone rolls, like a 1 and they critical fail or they critical hit. Whenever it's, like, emotionally important, whenever like the numbers are really close, where it's like they're really trying to do something, really struggling, and then they roll and it's like a 20, I'll let you hear that and like, oh, 20 on, and then you'll know. But if they're like really close or whatever, sometimes I'll just skip over the number and just, so it adds that element of suspense where you don't know what's going to happen, because it's like, they'll play the game, I played the game that it's for them, the players. But then when it comes time to put it onto the podcast, it then slowly sort of moves in and out of being for a listener who knows about tabletop and a listener who doesn't. So for the listener who does know about tabletop gaming, you'll hear the dice roll, and then you'll hear them say, oh, it's at whatever, and then you'll know immediately what the tension is. Yeah. Whereas for anyone else, sometimes we'll skip over that, and they'll be just on the edge of their seat, hopefully on the edge of their seat, wondering, well, how are they going to get out of that? I don't know. I didn't even hear what the roll is. They just say, I want to shoot him. Oh no, man, it goes wide, and you cut down a telephone pole, and it crashes on a car, and then they're hearing it all live at the same time, not knowing what's going to happen next. So.
This whole thing was complete by accident. We had our game master was he was giving us I think it was just from one of the regular 4th edition books, right?
Except since we had Doritos, he was just continually making the jokes that we were now in the mine of Doritos.
Well,
the dwarves mine of Doritos.
When we're setting up the game, we're doing the introduction, and we had a rough idea of our characters. We had no idea what we were getting into. The whole Dorito gimmick of Dungeons and Doritos, it wasn't even remotely present.
Right.
We were just like, oh, you can hear us. If you listen to the first episode, you hear us name the show there. It was completely random. And that led to the world of Dungeons and Doritos, which is essentially the medieval fantasy world of Dungeons and Dragons. But, in Doritodonia, you mine Doritos from the ground. And they're both a form of currency and also a form of food. And so you have to kind of ration this in a very particular way. It was super rough, but then we hit our stride. We like to think that we're like Dungeons and Doritos today is one of the most cinematic podcasts out there. And a large part of that is because of the contributions of this man here, our Game Master Rule.
Okay, thank you.
So Rule brought this to a level of storytelling, and improvisation. We were playing as our characters all the time, but when he took command, we really fell into this world. The thing about Dungeons and Doritos is that it's the most popular show we've ever done, and it's just escalated. So
we have like 2 composers and a separate individual doing post-production, adding sound effects and Foley.
So at this point, Dungeons and Doritos, which has just entered its 3rd book, which is what we call seasons, it has an original score, and it had an original score halfway through the previous season as well. The previous season was worked on by Level 99 from Overclocked Remix. If you guys are familiar with that site, they're one of the biggest remix sites out there. And he teamed up with this local fellow, Ryan McQuinn, who's got a classically trained score background, and now it's all Ryan, and it's incredible. Like, they're giving us amazing material, original score for every single episode, sound effects. It's a very cinematic experience, and if you listen to it progressively, you can hear it go from like nothing and really kind of mediocre audio.
Really crappy.
We're in the process of restoring our older episodes because we're like, man, I can't even ask anybody to listen to that, but people loved it, so I'm like, oh. And Rule, you came into this kind of blind. I mean, was it weird for you? Because I mean, like
I was running some tests for sagas with some friends of mine, and Miriam, I guess.
Yeah,
I guess it was Miriam that talked to you guys, and then they gave me a call. And what they described to me was doing a radio drama, and that's why I got involved. I didn't really want to get involved on it just to play an RPG and record that. The idea of having a radio drama where everybody's hardcoring the character and the RPG part of it was we don't know where the dice are going to fall, so you don't know who's going to live or die.
And we have had people die.
Yes, that was what drew me into it. But the challenge I thought was going to be keeping things on track while we were playing, because nobody's going to listen to a podcast that's going to be 3 or 4 hours long, and you've got to have nice little break points into it. You've got
story beats.
Yes, and you've got. Sometimes we have 5 or 6 people at the table, and everybody's going off on to little tangents and things like that. And you want to encourage that because they're hilarious.
Mm-hmm. I mean, one of my favorite times we ever had was when we were just running. We had this incident. We escaped a city that we accidentally set on fire, and we sailed across the ocean and basically got kicked off on what was essentially a prison island because it was run by this pirate dictator. And all of a sudden, we accidentally set off a zombie problem, and so we fled that island as you do, and then by sheer luck, we ended up with an NPC who was on a kind of a secret mission to overthrow this particular situation that was happening on that island. Mm-hmm. So we travel with him to the Isle of Mages. It's an island that's rumored. No one really has any proof that it exists. It's not on any maps. It's like a metropolis, a practically modern metropolis filled with just the most absurd magicians and alchemists and so on. And there's this one fantastic episode where we just kind of just party on this island and get involved with all this stupid stuff. My character goes dress shopping, and one of our characters, a chair, who is a dwarf who was originally a dining room chair that was magically turned into a dwarf, and so he is very uncomfortable with the concept of clothing, hygiene. His physical interactions with himself are very involved because he's kind of like a child in a man's body. He doesn't really know why things are going the way they are. He doesn't wear any clothes, so he was nude. All the slaves in the island were nude, and he just fell in with these slaves, and they're really uncomfortable because he's not a slave, and so they knock him out and they bathe him because they think he's a slave because he's naked, and it's a great episode.
Since he was a chair, he thought he could still talk to wood, specifically furniture. Now, Stuart was like, okay, I'm just going to roll with this. Roll. Can you speak to this furniture? 20.
So it talks back. Like they do.
And he doesn't get much because it's a door.
Every DM regret ever. If you roll a 20, this can happen.
No. It was the table. And it was the table with all of the war plans.
Oh, sure. That was when it worked, and it was amazing.
Yeah, and so
the
the table
time
actually explained this is how the war troops moved and how everything moved on the table. Unfortunately, the chair was still too dumb to relay that information. But he said that the table was very nice and spoke quite eloquently.
So the other show we haven't talked about yet is Pokéballs of Steelix, our Pokemon show.
Yeah, I stumbled across a tabletop role-playing version of the Pokemon game through a online forum that was just totally homebrew. It wasn't official or anything.
Completely
like that.
fan-made.
And I thought it looked really fun. And since Dungeons and Doritos was really popular, and Pokemon is really popular.
We said we weren't sure if it was going to take off or anything, but obviously it ended up doing it. We did. It was Pokemon Black and White came out, and
right.
we did a Pokemon episode, and then for half of it we'll try this out. We'll see what people think about it, and then woo, there it went.
It was really popular.
So, what's unique about Pokeballs of Steelix is that not only is it set in the world of Pokemon, but because of one particular Munchkin-y kind of character, it has a very definitive place in the Pokemon timeline.
He demanded that he basically be the child of Jesse and James Rocket from the cartoon.
Raised by Meowth, no human intervention, on the Lake of Rage in a cabin. And so it's set, because of him, it's set 37 years after the end of the animated series.
Because he demanded that not only was he their child, he was a grown man and really creepy.
Our other characters range from 7 years old. The character I play, Tark, who was raised by Totodiles, and
the Safaris.
Maybe 15. Our other Poke trainers are 15 or so.
Yeah.
Just conventional Poke trainer ages. But man, we hang out with this demented older man who physically abuses Pokemon. He put out a cigarette on a Bulbasaur's eye. So it's a black comedy.
Because that Bulbasaur's name Sir burns a lot.
And he was weak to fire, so...
So, Cap, this has been bugging me. I've been, you said your character was raised by Totodiles.
Yes.
And my character was raised by Meow. And
Yes.
How many more of the group were raised by wild Pokemon? Is this an epidemic? Is there no more civilization?
Well, there's a big difference between being raised by the Meowth from the Pokemon animated series, who's basically a tiny person,
right,
and like a wild alligator. So when I think of Tark, I think of him mostly as he's kind of like Mowgli from the Jungle Book if he talked in complete gibberish and said Totodile an awful lot.
Please give a sample of how Tark talks.
You have to explain how you play the character from separate points of view.
Right. Yeah, I forgot about Percy Pokowitz somehow. So
just as an example, if we're playing the game and Hex was like, all right, so what does Tark do?
Right. So then I take on this accent, and I take on the role of Percy Pokowitz, an anthropologist who has been studying this young boy who was discovered in the Safari Zone, because only in this way am I able to aptly narrate the actions of this boy with his rippling muscles and his exuberance that just everywhere. He's climbing all over everything all the time, and it's very hard to keep track of him most of the time. I'm riding a bicycle, just running. He's very fast. And so the only way I was able to actually, I got to the point where in the second episode, I'm like, how in the hell am I going to tell anybody what this character is doing? Because I'm sort of inclined to just play the character non-stop. So I had to invent another character so I could play the other character. Because meanwhile, Tark's talking like this. He's like, oh, and so those are words. I'm spewing all this out of my mouth, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? How do I stop this?
And Hex just stares at you like, whoa.
So then I invented this other character to narrate the actions of the young boy, and then eventually, because we have this very dysfunctional group of poker trainers...
Okay, so both Dungeons and Doritos and Pokéballs of Steelix are victims of the same weird issue that every single character has built a character that does not want to do what everyone else wants to do. Dungeons and Doritos fortunately has my character VMAC, who kind of acts as the conscience, the moral compass, and goes, okay, everyone, we need to go this way. And he's big enough to enforce that. There was one episode of Dungeons and Doritos where VMAC was banished, and the three other main characters, Chair Jamela, who is Jamela.
Yes, I'm here.
Who is basically a greedy, selfish...
What? You...
lustful dragonborn.
Well, the last one is mostly true.
And Cher, who, as we have pointed out, is relatively idiotic. And then Jennifer. And Jennifer is evil. We just haven't figured it out yet.
That's true. Yes, we out of continuity. We don't know that when we initially met him, he was basically storming a town.
We were climbing a tower, looking for the bad guy, and apparently he had just killed someone. He was the evil person at the end of this tower. He had killed someone, and we busted in, where's the bad guy? He went, it's that guy.
We believe
already took care of him.
So that's a kind of a bit of a teaser for we're doing this origin comic, and that happens in it.
But that's that character. And so VMAC
Yes.
is removed from this situation. We're in this maze. So Chair's like, I want to go this way. Jamela and Jennifer go, okay, bye. You did that.
You have to understand. He's smelly. He's obnoxious. He's filthy. Yes, he's very powerful, and nobody's gonna miss him. But the fact is that he's awful. He's obnoxious. He was somebody trying to touch me. He was somebody trying to hug me. I want affection, but I don't want it for him. Thank you very much.
And then I'm gonna hop back to Pokéballs of Steelix real quick, because Pokéballs of Steelix, very similar game mechanic, where we have Tark, who is very much like Chair, except Tark just wants to do what a Totodile would do. We got Jamesy, who is creepy, wanting to do what he
That's
wants to
that's
do.
the Jesse and James person?
Yes, Jamesy
Okay.
is Jesse and James's child. And then we had two kids who basically just want to do what they want to do too. So when Turk goes, dubba-dabba-day, and wanders off, they go, cool, we don't have to watch him anymore. And when Jamesy goes, I'm going to go be creepy, they're like, good, stay away from us. There is no cement, no moral compass keeping these people together. Like, none of them want to be together. I mean, I tried my best. I put on the role of Professor Oak, Blue Oak, like Gary Oak, as a professor, saying, y'all need to stick together. They went, oh, okay.
Then there's this guy, and he's basically, I mean, he's been following these kids around, but there's been no direct interaction because he doesn't want to intervene because he's a pokeanthropologist. So he needs to just
observes the kid, right?
Yeah,
Observes.
exactly. So then one day things are going really poorly, and I'm like, okay, screw it. Percy Pokowitz walks in, and he meets up with Martin, one of the young, semi-dedicated, at this point, slightly schizophrenic Pokemon trainers. And he's like, excuse me, young boy. And he's like, oh, you're talking to me now? Well, you've been following us for days. And so I have this very awkward conversation where I attempt to steer him on course. Of course, he still doesn't listen quite, but it helps. And I've been wanting that interaction with Percy Pokowitz to not happen for quite some time. But they forced my hands. There was nothing I could do.
I mean, if we were to start a new tabletop role-playing game, I would do something like Doug has done, where there is for sure a game mechanic, like we are in business together. We cannot depart. We cannot not work together. We must work together.
To be fair, that's never stopped Briggs from doing anything.
Every game has their trump card and or munchkin of some kind.
No, but
not by design, just by
someone who's just there to say, I don't care about the game, I'm just entertaining myself.
No, but that's awesome. That's great to have, as long as you have someone there to go, well, here's why you're wrong, or no, go ahead, I want to watch this.
It's the lone wolf mechanic. Like, everybody has that lone wolf character who wants to go off and do his own thing and be the hero, and then screw everybody else.
Right, and having one of those is fun, it adds conflict, it's great. Having 5 of those...
Not so much.
Is awesome.
Lots of hijinks, but nothing gets done.
Well,
Which I think is part of what makes Dungeons and Doritos so much fun is because I have so little work to do. I come up with this is what's happening to them. This is what the potential end result is, and go. And then they take care of the rest because
I've had the opposite problem where I would craft like this great puzzle I thought where they have to go out and bust a ghost. They would get out there and they'd be like, here's an example. This one never made it onto a show because what happened was they get asked, the Ghostbusters get called out to a house and they say, okay, look, there's not actually a ghost in here. We just have a relative who's been living with us for like the past 6 months and he refuses to leave. Can you come in and like maybe either release a ghost or say there's a ghost?
You never told us. That's amazing.
And LaForge goes, that goes against everything our business stands for. and like, please, look, we'll pay you the fee to come and investigate, the investigation fee, the early fee, all these things. We just wanted to get him out of the house, and like a business, like a boss, he's just like, it's not our job to deal with your family problems. You got to deal with it. If you ever have a ghost problem, give us a call. And then he leaves. And I'm like, okay, well, here's another one. And then the same game that ended up not being a game at all, they go to another house where this person's like, oh yeah, I just inherited this house and there's a ghost inside. It's just running the vacuum cleaner and it's making a mess in the kitchen. Just go in there and bust it. So they go in there, they do their job, they bust it, no problem. They're about to leave when another car pulls up and it's the sister of the man who owns the house. Goes, he just asked you to bust the ghost of our dead mother. And that's why he wants to inherit the house because our ghost was haunting it. And I demand you release it or I sue you. And he goes, no, I paid you to take it away. Either take the ghost away or I sue you. And through their charisma rolls, through their cool rolls, their brain rolls, they're like, legally, in the real world, we're not obligated to do this. We're not obligated to take this job. We're going to release it back and you guys figure it out yourselves and we're going to go back to the firehouse. There's no money to be had here, so we're going to leave. And then they did. And I go, all right, well, then we're going to take a 30-minute break. And I'm going to write up something else, and then we'll meet back here then. So we'll get something to eat. But that's that. So money is sometimes enough, sometimes not enough. But even when the group has a focused goal, I can't throw them any curveballs because there needs to be money at the end or imminent death. Either they're going to be selfish and save their own lives, or there has to be a paycheck involved.
Like I mentioned earlier, one of the first RPG one-shot that we had requested by our fans was Paranoia XP. And one of the great things about that game is that it's, I mean, everybody's out to get everybody else, but because you have the dynamic of friend computer in this dystopian underworld, like watching over you at all times, and all of the bureaucracy that you have to deal with, even though you want to kill all your friends, that you still have to like play nice and be duplicious the whole time, and you're always going to be running on that same track. So we had quite the adventure, and everybody was at everybody's throats. But darn it, we made it, and weirdly enough, all of our replications were still, we were still good.
So, if you liked any of those podcasts and you'd like to check them out, just go to nerdyshow.com. Or just type Nerdy Show into iTunes, or the names of any of the shows you want to check out. It's all on there for you to subscribe to. If you'd follow all these links here, like to subscribe to our YouTube channel with more videos, including some forthcoming videos with me. And I'm so sensual and lovely, how could you resist, obviously? And so, subscribe to us, like the video, share it with your friends, and listen to some role-playing podcasts, damn it!